10th.
Okay. Hey.
It's all political, and that's
Good
disgusting.
morning, 10 o'clock. I want to start.
Good.
Get ready. Okay. So what I want to accomplish this week and next week, you could do whatever you want with that door. Okay. What I want to accomplish this week and next week is I want to review the role that Yehuda as a tribe and various leaders from Yehuda play in the run-up till Megillat Ruth. We'll see from these lectures the next 2 weeks that in spite of the fact that Moshe and Aaron, Shevet Levi, and then Yehoshua from Shevet Ephraim take the leadership over the next 80 or so years after Yetzias Mitzrayim, that the leadership of Yehuda was really never completely absent from the affairs of Bnei Israel. And I want to focus in on 6 individuals, 5 of them great people, but one of them who sinned, but we can learn a lesson from nevertheless. And the 6 people that I want to talk about are going to be in order: Nachshon ben Aminadav, right? Chur, Betzalel, Kolev, Osniel, and finally Achan, right? I think everybody should be familiar with those people. Huh? Chur, Betzalel, Kolev, Osniel, Achan, all right? All of those people are from Shevet Yehuda. Good morning, Sherry. All of those people are from Shevet Yehuda. So we'll talk about the various leadership qualities. I gave you 6 leadership qualities that we discussed with Yehuda, which were persistence, patience, timing, the content of your words, developing a feeling of trust, and the ability to persuade. To those, I want to add 4 more to bring the total to 10. 10 is a nice round number. And we'll see how the leaders we're going to be talking about this week and next week, okay, meet these. So let's add fearlessness, right? We all agree that every leader has to, in certain respect, be fearless. Superior intelligence, right? Doesn't work if you're not all that sharp, not the sharpest tack in the box, right? So we all have to have, leaders have to have superior intelligence. The ability to admit to a mistake, which is something we learned about with Yehuda, and we're going to learn again when we get to Achan. And very close to fearlessness is also courageous, being brave. Right? Okay, so let's start now first. For those of you that have the handouts, I did a little, you'll see a lion in the handout, just as the ancestry of David HaMelech. Remember, we are working up towards David HaMelech. Eventually, we'll get to it in a couple of weeks. All right? So you'll see where I'm going to talk about Nachshon. So you can see where Nachshon fits into the ancestry chart. Okay? He is the 5th generation after Yehuda. Right? Yehuda, Peretz, Chetzron, Rama, Aminadav, and Nachshon. Okay? And he's 1, 2, 3, 4 generations removed from Yishai. So the first time we come across with Nachshon, okay, was in Pashas Ba'era, which we read 2 weeks ago. Take a look at your handout number 2. Vayikach Aharon es Elisheva bas Aminadav, achos Nachshon lo li'isha. Right? So Aaron takes Elisheva, the daughter of Aminadav, the sister of Nachshon, lo li'isha. So already we see there's a merging between the leadership, Shevet Levi, and Shevet Yehuda. Because Nachshon is going to be obviously the brother-in-law of Aharon. So There's already a symbiosis, a partnership already developing between the two leadership tribes, Levi for Moshe and Aharon, and Yehuda with Nachshon. Right? As we go a little bit further, we know the story. We learned it last week in Pashas B'Shalach. Okay. We learned it last week this week in Pashas B'Shalach. Correct. We know the setting. Bnei Yisrael is left Mitzrayim. Crisis occurs as Bnei Yisrael is approaching the Yam Suf. In front of them, all they see is water. Behind them, all they see is Mitzrayim. Paro has had a change of mind. He's got his troops, his army, his chariots are chasing Bnei Yisrael, and they seem to be from one side pinned up against the sea, from another side, the most powerful army in the world at that time is chasing them, okay, and they don't know what to do. So let's take a look at number 3. Ufaro hikriv, Paro approaches, okay. Vayisu b'nei Yisrael sheneihem, b'nei Mitzrayim nosei achareihem, vayiru miyod. They see Mitzrayim is coming after them, and they're very, very frightened. Vayitzaku b'nei Yisrael Hashem, and they start yelling and screaming. Remember, we're dealing with the people here who had just gotten out of Mitzrayim, right? Still have the slave mentality. Okay, everything was pretty much okay, right? Vayomu al Moshe, they say to Moshe, "Mibli ain't kvarma Mitzrayim lekachton lamus b'midbar." There were enough graves in Mitzrayim that we didn't have to come out here into the desert. Okay, Mazos asisa lo notzi Mitzrayim. So they have charot that are upset that they left Mitzrayim. Okay, so let's skip down. Vayomer Moshe Elohim al tira'u. Moshe tries to pacify him. Says, "Don't be afraid. Isyatzvu, stand aside. U'ru'u es Yeshua Sasheba sheyaselochem hayom." Take a look. Today is going to be a day of salvation. Ki asher atem asher isem Mitzrayim hayom lo so sifun l'rosam od alom. Today is the last time that you're ever going to have problems with Mitzrayim. After today, it's all over. Hashem yilachem lochem v'atem tacha rishon. You know, God will fight for you, but you people hold your peace. Right? So, what happens? We know what happens. That Bnei Yisrael, you know, is yelling and screaming there, and it's an untenable position. And here we come across Nachshon, and it's not in the Torah, but I'll give you the Gemara. If you take a look at the next number 4, the Gemara in Sota. Okay, Nachshon ben Aminadav, we all know, right? Why did the Yam Suf ultimately split? Because Nachshon ben Aminadav from Shevet Yehuda jumped in. Well, where do we know this? It's not written in the Torah. But where do we know this? So I brought you the Gemara. Omer Rebbe Yehuda, if you go to number 4, right? So Omer lo Rebbe Yehuda, there's a whole discussion that precedes this, which is not really germane to what we want to talk about. Omer Rebbe Yehuda, Elazar Omer, Maser, that you described, okay, is not the way we said it, all right? Rather, this is what would happen. Ani yorei tchilo layom, v'zeh omer ayin ani yorei tchilo layom. Shvatim were having a debate there. You know, somebody has to go ahead and jump into the sea. So every Shevet was saying, obviously, you go first, or you go first, or you go first, right? There wasn't, nothing would happen. So all of a sudden, Kofetz Nachshon ben Aminadav. So Nachshon ben Aminadav jumped up, okay, and he jumped into the sea. Nachshon ben Aminadav, right? The Yorad Layam Tchila, and he descended into the sea first. Shadamar, and he bring down a pasuk to show that. All right. Yola Mefarish Kabbalah. Now concerning this is written, okay, and then there's more psukim. So we see here, this is the source here in the Gemara, Sota, that Nachshon ben Aminadav was the sea split because somebody was quote unquote courageous enough to go ahead and do it. Ada has a question already. Ada?
An important effect like that is because of him, the Yam Suf split.
Yes.
Because that doesn't matter. how is it possible that this is not written in
I guess, okay, how is it possible it's not? I guess,
It's not logical.
okay, I don't have a good answer for you.
But don't you think that really is a good question? I mean, how is it possible?
The only thing I'd say is many times the Torah does not want to really bog us down in all the minutia and all the details.
Because of
Yes,
it.
this,
No, not because of him. Hashem would have split this.
Marty,
The miracle happened because of it. Hashem would have done it
so it's a good
anyway.
question. All right, so let me go. Did it happen because of him? If Nachshon had not jumped in, would Hashem allow Bnei Israel to drown?
Marty,
Yeah, Robert.
what was Moshe's role in the splitting of the sea?
Moshe's role was to take a stick and to raise it over the Yam, and the Yam would, right, so it's all a big partnership,
So
all
which
right?
happened first?
Which happened first, I think Nachshon jumped in first, and then Moshe lifted his stick, okay?
Thank you.
Go ahead, tell us. Right, all right, so Shabtai is pointing out that a little further down Shlishi, it's written that Moshe stretched out a stick, the sea split, okay? All right, that's the Gemara, all right? So that's Nachshon, all right?
As a matter of fact, we could learn something from this, that Hashem will make miracles for us, but we have to do something. So now Hashem jumped in, then Hashem made the miracle. If we sit, miracles don't happen.
Sam is saying that sometimes to have a miracle performed for us, we have to show our ability to want to participate and to force it to happen. Sitting back many times doesn't solve the situation. Hashem is looking, I guess, to paraphrase what Sam is saying, for some commitment on our part that we're worthy of having a miracle done for us, and then the miracle will be
I
done.
think it says something. We have to do that we have to do.
Right.
Not
Okay.
to rely on Hashem that will help us, but not to sit there and say,
All right.
help.
So, okay, so going through that list of attributes that we said a leader has to have, especially a leader from Shevet Yehuda, what do we see here? We see the attribute of fearlessness, right? He wasn't concerned about the consequences. He knew that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was not going to allow him to drown. Boldness, right? And courage, right? And this was epitomized by Nachshon. All right. Specifically, Nachshon has the same positive attributes to act fearlessly when others are afraid to engage, and that was a big attribute of Shevet Yehuda. Let's go to number 5. We'll see Nachshon is the Nasi of Yehuda. Okay. Nachshon by Dabar Hashem al Moshe Lemor. Okay, the Midbar Sinai B'Yomor B'Echel Chod Shashini, and it says he's listed as the Nasi. You take a look down to sentence number 7, La Yehuda Nachshon ben Aminadav. I took the time to go through. If you take a look at number 6, okay, in your handout, okay, the first census that was taken by Bnei Israel, you can see many times like the most powerful tribe was Yehuda, and you can see this is reflected by the first census that Bnei Israel took. You can see they have so many more people, members over the age of 20 than the next closest Shevet, I think, is probably done with 62,000 people. Yehuda already had over 74,000 people. So when I was doing this once, somebody asked me, Shabtai, you'll get a kick out of this. Why do all the numbers end in 0? Every Shevet had a 0. You take a look at the Shevet, all the population numbers end in 0. They rounded the numbers. Did they round them up or did they round them down? They rounded them up or down? All right. It was a question somebody once asked me. I didn't, it came from nowhere. So, all right. We'll also see that Yehuda, when it came time to travel in the Midbar, right, Shevet Yehuda had the primacy of travel. Okay, when they set up the camps, okay, take a look at the next one. Right, Davar Shem Moshe B'Aron Lemor Ishal de Globio Sos the base of Osam Yachanu B'nei Israel. Then skip Hachonim Kedma Mizracha, the first one that would travel eastward. Degel Machane Yehuda L'Tzivosam, the Nasi L'Bnei Yehuda. There he is again. Nachshon Ben Aminadab. So Yehuda was recognized. Okay, if you take a look at your handouts, I gave you a diagram. Take a look at number 7. Got it, number 7. All right, this is the way that the camp was set up for the travel. You can see they were moving forward. As they move forward, Yehuda would be the first one, would be the leader, and its camp would be traveling first. All right? All right. And the very, very interesting thing I found, okay, the order of the camps and their geographic positions were determined by Yaakov's instructions to his sons and how they were to carry his Aron from Mitzrayim to the Me'arat HaMachpelah. Okay, so this, we talk about Ruach HaKodesh, okay, we talk about history sometimes repeating himself. You know, this wasn't done haphazardly. The tribes didn't just line up at these, for the favorite positions. Okay, it was all decided when Yaakov came up from Mitzrayim with his Aron. This is the way they carried it. Okay, I thought that was a very interesting thing when I saw it. All his sons went up, sure. All the sons went up. No, all the sons went up. Right. But also, don't forget when they went up also, first of all, they had 12 sons to carry the Aron, right? But to give Yaakov kavod, right, many of the leaders of Mitzrayim went up. Avel kaved zel Mitzrayim, okay? They saw that this was a very, very important, because Yaakov was a leader. Yaakov was the father of Yosef, and he was very looked up to in Mitzrayim as a very, very important person. This was the formation that they carried the Aron to from Mitzrayim. No. This was the way they carried the Aron, Yaakov's Aron from Mitzrayim. Then they came back. So nothing to do with the way they left. All right. I don't know how they left. You'll have to maybe watch Cecil B. DeMille, the 10 Commandments. Will tell you how they left. All right. Garbage Channel. Okay. All right. The symbolism in Yehuda's position. Right? Symbolism in Yehuda's position. So up in Shemayim, when the time comes and we'll all be zocher to see it, the Kisei of Hashem, they say, is surrounded by 4 animals, right? And the lion is the symbol of Yehuda, is on the east side of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Kisei, so to speak, right? So the travel arrangements represent exactly that, okay? The east is also the direction which light comes into the world in the morning, right? First light comes from the east. Light is also a metaphor for Torah, right? Yehuda was destined to have the most scholars serving in the Sanhedrin, so therefore it traveled east. It traveled into the light, all right? Okay. The next time we see a leading role, which is very, very important in Yehuda, is when we dedicate the Mishkan. Take a look at number 8. Vayakrivu hanesiim eis chanukasam mizbeach. The Nesiim, the heads of each tribe, the presidents or the princes of each tribe, okay, bring korbanos. Yomi Moshacho. So when the Mishkan was inaugurated, okay, Vayakrivu hanesiim es korban lifnei mizbeach. Vayomer Hashem al Moshe. Hashem tells Moshe, Nasi echad layom, each Nasi will have its own day to bring a korban. Yakriu was korbanon lachanukas hamizbeach. Okay, all right. Now, how did we determine which Nasi were to go first? Obviously, everybody, when it was a tremendous communal project to build the Mishkan that we know everybody bought into. Of course, after 2 days of collecting monies and donations, unlike our building fund here in the shul, a word had to go out in the Machaneh that they had enough. We had enough, all right? So that everybody bought into the project. There was a great deal of enthusiasm. So, according to Chazal, what happened is every Nasi ready to his korban on the first day, and Moshe Rabbeinu was confused whether the Nesiim should all bring their korban on that day, or that there was, had to be spread out over 12 days. So Hashem says, Nasi echad layom, Nasi echad layom. So that solved that, all right? Right? Now, Moshe Rabbeinu again didn't know the order that the korbanos were to be brought. Probably, maybe Reuven, as the oldest, should have had the right to bring the first korban, right? But we know that didn't happen, all right? So God told him that the korbanos were to be brought relative to the way the tribes traveled, so that Yehuda had the primacy of travel. He was going to be the first shevet to bring the korban. And again, it was Nachshon ben Aminadab who brought the korban, okay? All right. They also said, according to Chazal, quote, Nachshon, the son of Aminadab, deserves to be first, since he was the one who jumped into the sea, and so it was, all right? So let's go next. Vayehi hamakriv vayomer rishonis korbanos Nachshon ben Aminadab lamata Yehuda. And then it goes through a description of his entire korban. And then the Torah, some fascinating thought here, okay? The Torah, and many times is about Korah. I run through these things very, very fast. People, you look in the Chumash, there's no Rashi attached to it. It's just one long page. And every shevet brings the same korban. Every shevet brings the same korban. So I'll ask you a question, okay? Or ditto, or etc. Why did it say one time, and why didn't it say that every korban, each shevet brought the korban, all right? What was the godless of what Nachshon ben Aminadab did? Here he's got a blank slate, okay? If you take a look closely at the reading, Kadosh Baruch Hu didn't tell them what to bring. Nachshon ben Aminadab made up himself in terms of what he was going to bring. There's no, like in the Torah with korbanos, Hashem says, you do this sin, you bring this korban. You do this, you got to bring this korban. Here, if you take a look, you'll see there's no tzivur from Hashem on what to bring. Okay? So we have to decode, for want of a better word, we have to decode what the korban that Nachshon ben Aminadab brought. What was he trying to say by this korban, all right? So,
not only that, it wasn't only animal korban, but utensils of silver.
Yeah. So we're going to see, actually, I don't want to.
That was dedicated to Beit HaMikdash, right?
To the Mishkan. Mishkan, yeah. Okay. So is there any, obviously, if I'm going to ask you a question, is there any symbolism in what he brought? Obviously, yes, there is a symbolism. Otherwise, I wouldn't ask you the question. So we'll see how Nachshon thought this out so thoroughly, with such chachma and such insight, that maybe this is the reason why, we had one story way back at the start of the Torah, where somebody brought a korban, and then his brother tried to one-up him and say, I could do better, right? Cain and Hevel, and we all know how that ended out. We had two korbanos, Hashem accepted one and didn't accept the other, and then it caused a tremendous, the first murder in history. Nachshon brought this with such, the godless of this is that Nachshon brought this with such insight and such thought. And the godless of all the Nesiim at the time was that nobody tried to embarrass or to one-up for want of a better word, another Nasi. What he brought was so perfect that every Nasi, you get 12 leaders in today's day and age, call a board meeting, you have 12 board members all deciding the same thing, and everything is good. There's no machlokas. We say it's a miracle. And in a sense, this is a miracle here too, that no other Nasi tried to say, I could do better. Well, you think that was good? Watch, wait till we see what I bring. So let's try to decode this, okay? First thing he brought was Karas Kesef Achash Shalosh Mumeyo Mishkaloh. He bought a silver bowl weighing 130 shekels. Odd number, 130 shekels. Mizrak Echad, okay, filled with Shivim Shekel B'Shekel HaKodesh, okay. He bought one silver sacrificial basin weighing another 70 shekels, okay. Okay, Shneihem Alayim, both were filled. Soles, Belula, Bashem, and Lemincha. The best grade of wheat meal kneaded with oil brought. Then it says the bowl and the basin was shaped like the earth, the bowl representing the seas that cover the earth, like a bowl, and the basin resembling a spherical playing ball corresponding to the spherical earth. These two vessels alluded to the two kings of the house of David, King Shlomo, and the anointed kingdom Mashiach, whose dominion would extend over the entire world. If it was important to talk obviously I went to sources. I went to the Torah Shabbat, who explains all of this, okay? All right. The weight of the bowl, we said, was 130 shekels, okay? If you take the word Yamim, Yod Men, Yod Mem, okay, comes to a value of 130, okay, all right? And this was exactly the same size, okay, that, what you call it, and also the 30s was the same size of the temple that Shlomo was going to build, 130 by 30. Okay? For 140, right. So, no, 110 plus 30 is 140. Shloshim u'meyah mishkalah. All right, let's move on. All right. The weight of the basin was 70 shekels. Okay? Bearing an allusion to King Shlomo, who would rule over 70 nations. Right? Both vessels were of silver, signifying that both kings would be totally righteous men. Righteous are compared to silver, and they bring down a posuk from Mishlei, the tongue of the just is like choice silver. The vessels were filled with the best grade of wheat, with hints at the gifts that all nations would be bringing to King Shlomo and also the other king. 1 gold incense bowls, kaf, weighing 10 shekels, which Nachshon the Shana Nadav bought, is an allusion to the 10 generations extending from Peretz to King David. And it goes on. A young bull, a par, okay, is an allusion to the patriarch Abraham. Right, the ram refers to Yitzchak. The goat alludes to Yaakov, to whom Judah presented Joseph's tunic dipped in a coat of blood. All right, 2 oxen pointed to King David and King Shlomo. Right, the 5 rams, the 5 male goats, and the 5 yearling sheep, a total of 15, represent the 15 kings that the kingdom of Yehuda was going to have, from Rehoboam to Tzidkiyahu, right? When God saw that the leader of this tribe had brought sacrifices corresponding to the patriarchs and the kings, he praised the bearer, saying, Zeh Korban Nachshon ben Aminadab. All right? Go ahead.
intimating about the severe nature of the law.
The bowl.
In those days, they didn't know that the word that the earth was divine.
Maybe they did.
They may have, but it wasn't flat
Okay.
until Copernicus. Earth was flat.
Okay. But I don't know if Bnei Yisrael believe
So
that.
maybe that was the difference.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay. So Nachshon, you can see I want to leave Nachshon because I want to half hour left only. So Nachshon did this with Chachma, with Seichel, okay, and he did it in such a way that it was perfect. Nobody had to one-up him. All right. Let's go to Chor. All right. Chor in your handouts. Chor. I saw this, the mysterious life and death of Chor. Okay. Number 9. First time we come, of course, Chor is where? Famous, we're going to read it again. The Shabbos, this coming Shabbos, Parshas B'Shalach. Vayavo Amalek, Vayilochem im Yisrael b'fidim. Okay? Vayom Moshe Yoshua, Moshe says to Yoshua, B'chalonu anoshim, choose us good fighters, say Lochem b'Amalek, go and have a battle with Amalek, and we know the whole story. Let's go to sentence Yud. Vayas Yoshua kasher lo Moshe Lochem b'Amalek, u'Moshe Aharon v'Chor Olu Rosh Hagivah. Okay, Moshe, Aaron, and Chor. These are the 3 prominent people that are going to do this. Moshe Yodav Gabah Yisrael. The famous story, Moshe's hands are up. Israel is prevailing in the battle, and his hands are lowered. They get tired. Okay, Amalek is prevailing. Today, Moshe Chveidim, you know the story. They bring him a stone. They sit him down on a stone. The Aaron v'Chor tomchu b'yadav. Aaron and Chor hold up Moshe's hands, support his hands. Mizeh echad, v'yadav amuna bo hashomesh. So Chor is one of the 3 people, actually one of the 4 people, if we include Yehoshua. Okay, 4 achim, 4 brothers working together, 4 holy men working together to defeat Amalek. Okay, so the story of Chor is one of heroism. We'll see this here. We'll see this in the next story. Tragedy, and ultimately, there's going to be a redemption, right? According to tradition, Moshe's oldest sister Miriam marries Kalev, okay? And Miriam and Kalev have a son whose name is Chor, right? So Chor is related to Moshe, okay, through marriage, to Moshe's sister, right? Okay. Chor was one of the 3 people that go up the hill to help Moshe, and he was obviously a man whose stature was close to his venerated uncle Moshe. From here, we learn also that 3 people, we generally have 3 people standing at the Amid, right? Koreh, Gabbai Sheni. Where do we come this from? The 3 people standing at the Amid. Allegedly, it comes from here. Moshe sitting in the middle there. Mizeh echad and Mizeh echad, 2 people holding up his hands. So that's where the custom arises from having 3 people here. Gabbai, 3 people at the. Okay. We have a sentence I came across. Hine matovu manoyim shevet achim gam yachad. Right? Very famous sentence. So if we take apart the word achim, okay. Who do you have in achim? Aaron, Chor, Yehoshua, Moshe. Okay, these are the 4 people, achim, the 4 people that were very, very instrumental in defeating Amalek. Right? After this, the next time we're going to meet Chor. Moshe is a couple of months later. Moshe is now about to go up to Har Sinai for his stay there for 40 days to get the Torah. And he tells the people, what does he say to them? Look at number 10. Vayom Hashem el Moshe alei alai ha'hora v'yasham yet nechos luchos u'even. He's about to get the Torah. A mitzvah shekosafti l'horosam. right? Bialas Kedim Omar, to the other people who are important, okay, he says, Shvulon Bozeh, you guys, you're not coming up with me, Sinai, to get the Torah. You stay here. Adashar Noshuv Aleichem, until I come back. B'nei Aharon v'Churi Mochem. He designates two people, Aharon and Chur, I'm leaving behind. Mival Devarim Yigash Aleihem. Whoever has a problem or a complaint or a court case to bring, or to needs a halacha to be paskined, I'm leaving Aaron and Chur for you while I'm gone for 40 days, right? Yeah, Moshe, okay? So this is the final time we meet Chur by name. We meet Chur by name, right? So Moshe is up in Shemayim for 40 days, and he leaves Aaron and Chur, okay? Chur from Shevet Yehuda, Kalev, father's Kalev. Okay? He leaves him behind with Aaron to be the leaders. What happens? We all know the story. Yoshua went up partway the mountains with him. He didn't leave Yoshua in charge. Yoshua stood by the mountain waiting for Moshe to come down, right? Aaron and Chud dealt with the daily administration of the people, the justice, whatever they needed. If they had halachas, civil suits to bring.
Well, that's a good question. Yoshua was the helper of Moshe, the second half.
So the Torah tells us Yehoshua went up to the foot of the mountain and he waited for Moshe Rabbeinu. And he didn't involve himself. He was Mishoris Moshe. His interest was to be the Mishoris of Moshe and not so much to be involved in the administrative day-to-day job of administrating Bnei Yisrael for 40 days. So the next time we come across Chur, not by name, okay, famous story by Yar Ha'am Ki Boshesh Moshe. Look at number 11. The people see that Moshe is not coming down from Shemayim. I don't want to go into all the calculations. They didn't know exactly when to start the clock, and when the clock ended, Moshe said 40 days. They didn't know if it would be Shachris or Mincha, exactly when he was coming down, what hour, okay? So by Yikohel Omal Haron, they see that Moshe is not coming down. So they go to Haron, and they say, Kumba Selonu Elohim, make for us a God, Asher Yelchu Lefanenu, Yizeh Moshe Ish, Asher Lonu, Mitzrayim, Mitzrayim, Lo Yadanim El Hoyolo. We saw him go up into the clouds, and we don't know what's happening to him. He said 40 days, and his time's up. He's not coming down. What?
That's really very strange. They could have consulted this hour. What do you think was true? When do you think was it?
Okay, so obviously,
Obviously they did.
okay. So Aaron says to them, it's a stalling process. Okay. Parku Nizme HaZahav Hashebi Haslein Sheichem B'neichem No Sheichem V'Haviu Eloi. Aaron comes up with a plan, you know. I don't want to sound like I got to be politically correct, but Aaron figures if the men go to the women and ask for their jewelry to throw into make an Egel HaZahav, the women were not going to want to part with their jewelry. They didn't want to part with their jewelry. So it's a stalling tactics. Aaron says to them, go collect some jewelry from the women, okay? All right. Vayikach miyadam, but the plan backfired. Vayotzar oso b'cheret, he throws it into a fire, right? And what happens? Vayaseh egel maseicha, from that emerges an egel maseicha. I don't want to get into the whole story because we're focusing on Chur, all right? Right. This is a whole different story. What happened there? Vayomru, and they say, Elo Elohecha Yisrael, Asher Lucha Me'eretz Mitzrayim. They give godlike qualities to this egel that emerges. Vayara Haron Vayiven Mizbeach Lefonov. Haron figures before let's involve people in a building project, so maybe they won't do a Avodah Zarah. So he starts to build a Mizbeach. Vayikra Haron Vayomar Chagla Shem Mochor. Okay. They get up in the morning. They're having a whole party there. They're bringing korbanos. Okay, and here we say B'tzachek. They were involved in sexual unpermissible sexual acts, right? Okay, so how is this? Where is Chor? Where is Chor all of this? We go back to a couple of psukim. Vayara Haron. Aaron saw. The Torah asks us, what did Aaron see? What did he see? What did Aaron see?
There was a time and he didn't come back.
So,
Marty, what source are you reading from? For those of us who don't have the sheets.
I'm in Parshas Kisisa,
Oh, no wonder. I can't
Okay.
find it.
between Shani and Shlishi. Okay. Vayara Haron. Aaron saw. What did Aaron see?
There was a whole tumult of Israel that were unhappy with discussing the
Okay. So Chazal say he saw that this was getting out of hand, but he saw also one thing. Chur, according to Chazal, tried to stop all of this. He tried to stop the collection. He tried to fight against throwing the thing into the fire. He tried to stop this party that's going on. But the people were so incensed about what was going on, so wrapped up in the moment, that they killed Chor. They killed Chor. So Vayara Haron, that's what Aaron saw. Aaron saw that the people, Chor, who 30, 40 days earlier in the whole Maisa of Amalek had saved them, had intervened and saved them, now we became excess baggage. Okay? Next time we meet Chor, okay, it's a couple of weeks after that. Moshe told the Jews that he was sent to the mountain, remained there for 40 days. They decide to grow a cow. Okay. So, Chazal say that at this point, in one little episode, the three cardinal sins, which are Gili Arroyos, Shvichas Domim, and Avodah Zorah, in that whole story of the Egel, Bnei Israel violated all those three. So soon after Moshe coming down from Har Sinai. Right? Okay. All right. Number 12, let's take a look at number 12, the Tzachek. Okay, this the source is Rashi. Okay. Tzachek. The term implies the three cardinal sins. They committed a moral action. They murdered the Chor, who attempted to restrain them. Okay. I have one more to do. All right. Okay, so what qualities, summing up, do we see with Chor? Chor, we see the man is ultimately fearless, right? He's ready to put his body between all of Bnei Israel, okay, to prevent the Egel, and he's courageous, right? So two more attributes that Chor, all right. But Chor ultimately gets redemption, okay? All right. There's a postscript to Chor's story. The Torah tells us when it became time to build the Mishkan, Hashem tells Moshe to appoint an architect for this endeavor, head of the building. Okay. The name of this architect was Betzalel ben Uri ben Chor. Right? Grandson of Chor. Okay. Just like the Egel at Zohar turned them away, and Hashem came down and said, I have to build something because I see if I'm absent, Bnei Israel needs something to express their tefillos to. Okay, so the thing is going to be a Mishkan. He takes Chor's grandson, Betzalel, and he gets Betzalel to be in charge of building the Mishkan. All right? Okay. The Orach Chaim offers an insight into the name Chor. This is from the Orach Chaim. Okay. Chor shares the same root as the word Chorin, freedom. Okay. Okay. Hashana Haba, B'nai Chorin. He explains that it was only through the building of the Mishkan that the Jews were finally freed. They became B'nai Chorin from the blemish of their sins at the golden calf. Building a home for HaKadosh Baruch Hu was their rectification for the sinful behavior that pushed God away from them. In other words, Bezalel, grandson of Chor, provided the Jews with the freedom from their sins, that including killing his grandfather. Right? Okay, let's go number 13. I want to finish up Bezalel. So, Ri'u Karasi b'Shem Bezalel ben Uri ben Chur Lamate Yehuda v'Amayo so Ruach Elokim. He has Ruach Elokim. He said that's one of the attributes of a leader. B'chachma u'b'zvuna b'das u'b'chol malacha. So, I want to go through. Chabad, right? So let me talk to one of our Hebrew people here. I'll pick on Rita. What's the difference between Chachma, Tevuna, and Dat? I didn't ask you. Okay. Go ahead, Ada. Go ahead.
Chachma is wisdom.
Correct.
Tevuna is understanding. Leaving the vow, we talked about. And knowing the facts.
Okay, so you're very, very close. Very good. So Chachma is defined as wisdom, is what a person hears and learns from others. Okay? Huna, like you said, is understanding. What one understands from what one already knows. You have to know something, and then you have to get deeper into really understanding it. And Das is knowledge, which includes divine inspiration. Das. Okay? Okay. So, Bezalel, obviously, is Shevet Yehuda, Ben Uri Mechol Lamate Yehuda. He has all three of those. He has all three of those attributes of a leader. The interesting thing with Bezalel, okay, how old was Bezalel when he built the Mishkan? Yeah. He was going to Chazal, he was 13 years old. And some say he might have even been as young as 12. Huh? It's, okay. So you can imagine, I mean, just as a sidebar, imagine us as adults if our life's work were fulfilled at 13 years old. And it's all downhill from there, right? Bezalel realized his life's goal, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu put him on earth at the age of 13. He was 13 when he builds, huh? Okay. Not only that, he had to have the ability, he didn't build all these things by himself. He had a lot of people with him. So he had to have the ability to manage adults and to manage people who are doing all these projects. Okay? Like Shabtai is a tremendous maker of mezuzot covers, right? He could do that on his own, but I don't think you can build a mishkan on your own, right? Difficult job. All right. Anyhow, it's a plug. If you need a mezuzah cover, get in touch with Shabtai. Marvelous. He's not the sofa, he makes the case. So I'm making a case that you should buy your case from Shabtai. Okay. So he was what did he know? Lachshov machshavos. Okay, he was able to come up with machshavos, lasos, bazov, kesef, manachoshes. He had the ability to work with all three forms of metals. Okay, v'charoshes even lamalos and v'charoshes eitz. He was a carpenter. He was an architect. He was able to work with stone. Right. Okay. Number 14, the work is all finished. Okay. So Chazal say what happened was Moshe Rabbeinu, okay, was up in Shemayim and he gets the command from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to go and build a Mishkan. And Hashem is trying to explain to Moshe Rabbeinu, okay, that you got to build a menorah and this is the way it has to be shaped. And it's got to be so many inches and so many feet and so much decoration on it. And it's got to go this way and it's got to go that way. And Chazal, you go to Mayam Loes, has a very, very excellent explanation of what happened up in Shemayim. Hashem learned this with Moshe Rabbeinu over and over and over again. Over and over again. And for some reason, Moshe didn't chop it. I mean, maybe that wasn't his expertise, you know.
He has a problem with
Okay. According to Chazal, he had a problem with all of it. Okay. He was able to repeat what he heard up in Shemayim. He was able to repeat the Betzalel, but he never really grasped everything, how to do it, right? So that's why the Torah tells us, Re'u. Okay, you know what, Moshe Rabbeinu, Re'u. Go get a hold of this kid, Betzalel. Okay, and they say that Betzalel, Moshe Rabbeinu told him once that this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, and immediately he had the insight to grasp everything and to do it without having seen it. Just from Moshe Rabbeinu's description of it, he knew how to translate Moshe Rabbeinu's work into a finished art product. Okay. Okay. Who is Betzalel now? Betzalel, his great-grandmother was Miriam. Okay. When Pharaoh ordered the chief midwives of the Jewish people, Miriam and her mother Yocheved, to kill the baby boys, they courageously refused. We know the story, right? And indeed redoubled their efforts to help the mothers and their babies by supplying with food. Okay? One reward for Miriam. What was the reward for Miriam? Was that her great-grandson, okay, was Betzalel, who would build the Mishkan. That was the reward for hers. Okay? Miriam's son and Betzalel's grandfather was Chor. Okay? Midrash describes how he too bravely stood up for righteousness, this time against the people who wished to make a golden calf and worship it, and was tragically killed. HaKadosh Baruch Hu honored his heroism by repeatedly singling out the name of his grandson, Betzalel, from among all the Mishkan's workers. All right? Betzel Kale. Betzalel is Betzel Kale, shadow of God. Right? There are several Midrashim that tell us that Betzalel never had any direct communication with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moshe Rabbeinu spoke directly to Hashem, who gave him his instructions on how to build the Mishkan and its kalim, its size, measurements, etc. Moshe, according to the Midrashim, had to ask Hashem several times to repeat what he was telling him. He couldn't grasp many of the architectural concepts that were going to be involved in building this. Finally, Hashem said to him, Re'u Karav Peshem Betzalel ben Uri. Go find, look and see. There's a person by the name of Betzalel who will do all of this. All right? Okay. Okay. There is no logical way to explain how a 13-year-old who never saw a vision of the Mishkan and the Kalim from Hashem like Moshe did, and who growing up in Egypt worked as a slave with bricks, would have developed these artisan skills. The Jews never worked as slaves. They never saw gold. They never saw silver. Okay, they saw teven. Okay, they saw stuff to build bricks, but they never saw mud. But they never saw gold. They never saw silver. They never saw copper. So where did Betzalel get all of this from? Okay, so again, it's the Chachma, the Zvuna, and the Das. Okay. Okay. So look what he needed, the following skills. He was skilled in devising plans to make things out of gold, silver, and copper. He was a metal worker, okay? Yeah, he would know how to cut precious stones. A different skill completely, right? He would know how to cut wood. Another skill, carpentry, right? Okay. All right. So again, we see now from Betzalel another characteristic that's Shevet Yehuda and all leaders from Yehuda have superior intelligence. Obviously, to build all of this stuff, he had to have some level of persistence. Sitzfleisch, right? You had to sit on your behind and be able to do this, right? And finally, huh? Right. Okay. So next week, I want to very surfacely go through Osniel, Achan, and Kolev, right? And then after that, the week after that, I want to go through extensively. I want to go through Megillat Ruth. Hopefully, we'll learn Megillat Ruth in such a way that we'll really understand what's going on. And Megillat Ruth is the Aim Shel Malchus, the mother of royalty, the mother, big grandmother of David HaMelech. So we're getting closer and closer to David and the Davidic dynasty. Thank you, everybody. Have a good week and good luck
Thank
with
you,
the
Marty.
second show.
Good.